do these people cope with these emotions? What is the impact of it on society and on the individual? Even when the migration is voluntary and to a country of choice, a country abundant with opportunities, wealth and support structures, a country such as Canada, the process of adapting to the new environment is often painful, long and rife with difficulties. So when a people are forced to migrate to a place not of their choice, will the forcefully displaced ever be able to adjust to a new environment?
I mean, this is a very interesting question because if we look at the history of our forced migration and the history of diasporas, the first generation or the early diasporas always think that at some point they would be able to go back to their place of birth or go back to their homeland. And then, so the phase that they are going through now is very temporary and they are hoping to go back. But in many cases, they would not be able to go back to their homelands. So then their displaced, their diaspora becomes a kind of a permanent kind of thing. So over the generation, that the attachment to the homeland or the home countries might diminish. Or over the generations, that can become stronger, depending on how this particular diaspora, socially, culturally, and politically, organizes itself around the very particular notion of identity. For example, there are certain diasporas, like Jewish diaspora, they continue to maintain their links with with Israel, and there are lots of other diasporas, where they simply forget, or they simply do not have the same kind of attachment to their homeland over the generation. So it is very difficult to answer the question in a black and white in a black and white way. But depending on the political consciousness and the social identity and the articulation of language and all this kind of thing, that is, and across generation, and that is the one that actually creates the degree of connections between the homeland. So that is the most important thing we need to understand. But all the time, the first generation diasporas, they prefer to go back if the situation in the home country improves. But in many cases, that never happens.
Actually, the people living in the refugee camp and children born in refugee camps and children and people who have migrated when they were in their second, third, fourth, fifth year of life, I have come across some, and that's the most painful reality for me. For the simple reason is that they take that as normal life. What is abnormal, what is, I would even say, anti-social, because they are branded, they are stigmatized, they are called refugees, and it's the place where they live is called a muham or a camp, and they think that is social life, that is their life. I mean, it's not that they are pushed into this by fate or by any form of destiny, but in fact they think that is this abnormal, inhuman sort of life is the normal life. And secondly, as they grow up, and as much as their parents would know and their brothers and sisters and other siblings know, being stateless is being faceless. You don't have an identity. You live as with the refugee identity all through in India, refer to a place which is called a refugee camp, and this dehumanizes people. I have come across people who have, in fact, I sponsored a few and got them down here. That kind of, severe psychological scar, which is so difficult to remove. They see that in every act of theirs as much as they find it very hard to come out of that also. And I think it's impossible for a person who had grown up in the normal circumstances to understand them, and this and also to make them to destigmatize them is itself a wrong process. To remove that label of statelessness, to remove that label of being a refugee, to remove that label that one has grown up in a refugee camp with severe limitations and restrictions. It's in fact a prison, because we don't put children in prisons. Anyone who is in prison is over 16 or so, and therefore they know that they are there because of a crime they have committed. Whereas these are children who have been there for absolutely innocent, who have no idea as to why they are here and what is happening, and they have no knowledge of the political conditions and the military conditions and so on, and therefore naturally they grow up with a deeply wounded psychic scar in them, and it's extremely hard to remove, and it comes again and again and again and again into them. And I think I, as one who has gone through as much literature on psychological and psychiatric illnesses affecting people who are displaced and forced migrants and so on, as far as people have been growing up in refugee camps are concerned, actually I have no answer.
There are generally different categories of people that are displaced. We have diaspora communities. There are communities that were the result of forced migration, but they were forcibly removed from their homeland and became scattered in all over the places other than the country of the origin, right? So in other ways, the segment of the population that lives outside its origin of the country of origin. So and the second category of people is what the United Nations generally call IDPs. The IDPs are internally displaced people. It's a kind of euphemism for people that are refugees in their own land, but they could not, or they cannot, or they elected not to move from their own country. So that is the group of people we call internally displaced, right? And there are also the other kinds of technically all of them are refugees. I mean, we need to accept the fact that all of them are refugees, and all of us are refugees. But some of them are here, and some of them did not have the adequate means and facilities to leave Sri Lanka and go to Canada or Australia. So that is the question of class, and also the question of affluence, right? So, but in the general analysis, all of them are refugees. Some of them are still confined there, and some of them have somehow managed to go outside Sri Lanka.
Tamil people are no strangers to these emotions. The Tamil people who lived in parts of the northeast of Sri Lanka, bordering the Sinhala south, have been forced out of their homes through organized violence, pogroms and harassment for the benefit of Sinhala colonization since Ceylon gained independence from British rule. The Tamil people of the hill country were forced out of their homes with a single stroke of a pen, called the Sirimavo Shastri Pact of 1964. But what is going on today in the north and east of Sri Lanka is unprecedented even in the sordid history of this island. The Tamil homeland is being systematically carpet-bombed and shelled by the Sri Lankan government forces, following what can only be described as a scorched earth policy. While the government forces claim militant casualties, the ground reports emanating from these areas are civilian death and displacement. The government prevents the independent media from visiting areas where daily bombardment takes place, forcing well-meaning members of the media to feed off the propaganda put out by the government as news. The Sri Lankan military was successful in killing the Tamil Tiger peace negotiator S.P. Thamizselvan with pinpoint precision bombing that targeted his